Welcome everybody to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Josh Fenton. It is Business Monday, Small Biz Focus. This is Christine Francis from Carmen and Ginger. Maybe the coolest place in downtown Providence. I'm going to give you W coolest place because it just is a cool place. I will admit I'm completely biased and have bought numerous things there. It is that eclectic, how do you describe it? Eclectic clothing, antiques, everything, design,
yeah,
you
there's
name
a little
it.
bit of everything. I won't argue with you. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I have a little bit of everything. Some clothes, some jewelry, for both men and women. But some linen, some housewares, some decor. We do a lot around the holidays, with decorations. Always a little bit of everything. There are some categories we always have, like vintage cameras. And then there are other things that we just find that are really interesting and we want to offer them in the store. So it goes back and forth.
Posters from the Warwick musical tent.
I did have some of those.
Yes,
yeah.
we bought one. It is in the Alex and Ani Lounge. I think it's like Florence Henderson, Bert Convy.
Most of them were from the 70s or 80s.
Yes,
yeah, they were
absolutely.
great. They were great. They're mostly gone. I sort of miss them.
And so, how long have you been open?
I opened on Black Friday 2013, so I've been
Excellent.
open 5 years just this past
Were you outthinking everyone by going on Black Friday? Because that's the day everybody's supposed to go
No.
profitable.
I opened and I thought, this is great. Everybody comes in and gives you money every day you're open. And then I was in for a rude awakening. When
That worked until about what, December 24th?
Yeah, about December, around then.
And then January was cold that year.
Oh, it was so cold. It was, and the arcade was newly open that year.
Right.
It wasn't even full. So yeah, it was a rough winter that year because people still weren't even aware that it was open. There were
Right.
people here who had gone to school and it was never open while they were here.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was a big learning curve for people that the building was open and what it had to offer and that people could walk through every day. That was a big transition.
And how's it been over the 5 years? Give it a little description about what your business experience has been. You had never been an entrepreneur before.
No,
So
no,
this is your
I did-
first time
I
diving
sold
in the deep end.
online. I sold online. I always had a full-time job with a paycheck, and then I sold online. So this was a big deal. I was tired of commuting. I was ready to sort of take a risk and decided I liked the size of the space. When I first opened, I had one space. In the second year, my neighbor decided to leave, so I asked the landlord if I could expand into the second. So I've been double wide ever since. And that was a good change to make
Yeah, that's right.
because they had a built-in dressing room, there's storage down below. It's funny, I knew when I opened I wanted to be near students and near tourists. And students and tourists are definitely my biggest customers. My toughest customers sometimes are Rhode Islanders. We were just talking about this before we went on camera about, it's tough to get people to come to the city. Even though the city's having a lot of press, a lot of notoriety, it's still tough to get Rhode Islanders. I had a woman come in the other day and she said, this is the first time I've been in here. And I said, well, where do you work? And she told me, I won't say on camera. I said, how long have you been here? She said, oh, only 3 years. I said, 3 years and you hadn't come in here? And she said she told a colleague of hers about my store, and her colleague said, oh, I only ever walk as far as New Harvest. I never walk further in the building. And that's still a struggle, is to get people who work downtown, to go in and sort of take their time and look around.
By the way, just if you haven't been in the arcade, the distance between New Harvest and your shop might be 30 feet.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, about maybe 10 or 15 cases.
Yeah.
Beyond. But, people are focused when they're on their lunch hour. They have their errands they want to run. So, it's been a matter of, shifting hours, so I better accommodate people, figuring out how to reach the people downtown. And a lot of it is word of mouth. I have a lot of people that come in, and even though I sell vintage, if you came in and bought, a piece of jewelry as a gift for somebody, I would wrap it up for you.
Right.
We would do the paper. A lot of guys like to come in, and not just, guys, but, it is common that a lot of
Right.
guys come in, they don't have a lot of time. And I give them something nice that's ready to go. It's wrapped, it's done. And a lot of stores don't do that, especially vintage stores. So
Well, and also, especially in an era of Amazon and Prime and big boxes
Right.
and no inventory and a million other
Right.
challenges for the shopper, to get that sort of handcrafted, that personal touch on it, Let's work on a commercial for you. It is coming up that it is Valentine's Day. How available are you to provide great Valentine's gifts to those in need?
Oh, we have great stuff all the time. So the jewelry is a big seller around Valentine's Day, definitely.
Excellent.
And we have all different price points, and we specialize in Coro and Trifari, which are two manufacturers that produced jewelry in the jewelry district. Coro was in the jewelry district. Trifari was in East Providence, I believe, at the height of the costume jewelry time for Rhode Island, which was
30s, 40s, 50s,
yeah,
60s.
Exactly. So we always have that, which is a nice sort of local flavor, and we have it all different price points. And then we have everything. We have things that are $5. We have things that are, $95. But most of the things in my store are actually $100.
Yep.
Very reasonable. We also have a lot of other little things that you can pick up, little joke gifts if you want something for a colleague or just a girlfriend you want to just stick in with a card. We also have cards. We have vintage Valentines. We have unused vintage Valentines. We have used vintage Valentines. We have a little bit of everything.
Used vintage? Do you cross out the previous name?
You can. You can just cross. Sometimes I give it to my mom. I just cross off that name and say, I don't know who this is, but...
For people who are previously married, maybe that's not a good idea to cross out the previous spouse's name.
I don't keep anything from my first marriage, so that's not an issue. But yeah, it's the graphics and the quality of the printing that's so good on some of the early paper things. People actually like them. Sometimes they just take one side, they cut it off, they glue it onto something else. They just like to collect them, frame them, whatever. People use them for all different things.
That's great. Talk about the challenge of starting a business. On Mondays we have entrepreneurs on, and they come and they talk about kind of everything under God's green earth, and there's always a couple of themes. One is, hey, it's not a bad economy. I think that's one of them. Talk about some of your successes, and then we'll talk about some of the challenges.
Okay. I think in terms of the economy, I think I was right at the right time to open a small business in downtown.
Totally.
Because downtown has grown so much in just the 5 years that I've been here. Just in terms of, we were talking earlier about my hours. For instance, when I first opened, I wouldn't have been open on Sundays.
Right.
After a couple of years, I realized I need to be open on Sundays because there's just more people walking around downtown, appreciating it.
There are more people, I think, walking around on a Saturday and Sunday than there are on a Monday through Friday.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people like to explore, and on Sundays you don't have to pay to park downtown, so it's great if people want to come in and explore from outside. So we even shifted our hours, and I feel like I've been able to sort of grow while the city's grown around me. And, the nice thing about being a small business owner is we all know each other. I know all the people up on Westminster Street. When I got started, Asher, who owns Frog and Toad, who just expanded to a West Side location too, gave me a lot of advice. We're all sort of like one big family, and we all sort of do similar things, but in different places. But we all support each other. We all sort of help each other advertise and helps. It's just like it's very nice. It's a nice size. It's growing, but there's a really nice sense of community.
Biggest challenge?
Probably not overspending, because people come in and they're like, oh, it must be so fun to shop for things. And it's like, yeah, it sort of is. I really like looking for unique things. You always have to make sure you're not
Your blimp
too much.
Probably wasn't a great idea.
Blimp, it's such a small market for that that I don't know. But that, and then also just, you have to pay attention to what your customers buy. One example I always give, and you're probably guilty of this, I put a rack of men's jackets in the hallway. Back before I even expanded, I had one Harris tweed jacket on that rack, and I think it was like a 42 short. It didn't fit anyone, but every guy tried it on. And I was like, you know what? I should get more of these. I now have a rack of almost, mostly Harris tweed jackets that I keep out there pretty much October through March. And guys love it. And it's just because you pay attention, And the flip side of that that's really hard is when you realize something you have isn't working. And you have to say, this part of the store isn't working, or this product isn't working. I need to make this work better. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. It's got to be a reflection of you, but you also have to be mindful of what customers want, what they're coming in for, what they're not reacting to, as well as what they are reacting to.
It's great. What's the breakdown, male versus female, of those coming in and spending?
I'd say close to half and half.
Yeah,
it's a very wide and diverse demographic. I broke out my men's clothing sales from my women's clothing sales for the first time last year, just to track. My men's clothing sales were slightly behind my women's, but they were neck and neck. I always say I put the men's stuff out in the hall and up front, so they don't have to go buy anything girly, to get to it. But yeah, I have both all the time.
Was 18 your best year?
Technically, well, 18 and 17 were pretty much neck and neck.
Yeah.
I was pretty statistically flat over 18. 18 over 17.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a bad year.
Yeah.
I had a very strong year the year before.
Yeah.
So I'm not disappointed. If I start to go backwards, I'll get worried. But at this point, it's just like, why am I flat? How do I get ahead again for next year?
Right. Talk about working with, you get a small business loan through Commerce and their partners, and talk about that process. Feel free to be completely honest. If it was difficult, hardship, they waterboarded you, any of those things, we want to know about
I had to sign something saying I couldn't talk about the waterboarding, but I did. I actually applied for a loan through another organization first, which with some stricter regulations, and the woman was great. And we went back and forth and tried to make it work, and she said, you know what? I don't think I can make this work, but I'm going to refer you to Buck at CIC, which was the organization that
Partnered with Commerce.
Yeah. And she actually called Buck, who I had met at a function before, and he called me that day. And we started talking, and I was actually traveling at the time, and I said, well, let's get together when I get back. And from that point on, it happened very quickly. And they set up a situation where I have a loan that's halfway through the partnership and halfway through the SBA, and I, pay it all through this other organization. And they were so easy to work with and
That's
so
great.
nice. And, it really was, the support of the SBA in general is great. I have a SCORE counselor that I meet with regularly, and they're very supportive. It's a great resource. I feel like there are a lot of great resources for small businesses in Rhode Island in all aspects.
And you used it to consolidate some debt, do some new things,
Yep.
expand a little bit.
Yep.
Did it make the difference?
Yeah, it did, because I was starting to get a little stressed. I had
Yep.
some debt that I had taken on that was at a high interest rate. This helped me knock that down and pay it off at a more reasonable rate, so I wasn't feeling guilty about it too. I felt better about the decision. I was able to invest in some things in the store that make things operate better, that just were fundamental things that needed to be purchased, and it allowed me to buy. I wanted to make some in-house designs. I do some in-house designs, just like T-shirts, cards, magnets, that sort of thing. And it allowed me to do some of those that I hadn't had the capital to do before, just to get that out there and hopefully start to wholesale those at some point too.
That's great. In the future, what are you looking to do? What do you see as maybe being new in 2019?
Probably to continue to figure out how to tap into the tourist market even more. And again, it's back to that what I talked about before, which is you have a vision, and my vision is as a vintage store, but I've realized I have a ton of tourists that are looking for souvenirs, and there's a couple of souvenir stores, and I can't be one, but if I have inventory that sort of covers both, it does very well. So even postcards, I sell thousands of postcards a year, and the magnets, and I want to figure out how to just merchandise them a little better and tap into that, even though it's just $5 here, $5 there. If I increase that, it increases everything exponentially.
That's great. Congratulations on all the success.
Thank you.
If you don't know it, Carmen and Ginger is on the first floor over at the arcade. For those of you who have not been to the arcade in a number of years, the second and third floor actually is residential. It's not all retail like it was back in the aught teens or something like that. And it is really a great shop. It's a very unique, special kind of retail location with just a great eclectic collection of products and a personal touch. I'm a
Thank you.
huge fan. So I want to thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
in today.
Appreciate
Stay right
it.
here. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Small Biz section today on Business Monday. Tune in tomorrow. Jam-packed day tomorrow. We've got, I believe, Commerce Secretary Stephen Pryor is on at the 4 o'clock hour, and there's some big happenings earlier in the day. I think the governor's got a big announcement with Infosys on some growth and jobs numbers coming into Rhode Island. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll see you back tomorrow on Go Local Live. Thanks so much.